forest is beautiful, suggestive, and awe-inspiring as the forest itself. She wanders far from civilization without becoming afraid or lonely. She is the mother of all sylvan things, who tills not, but still she has stores of food for men and animals. The Devi Mahatmyam describes Aranyani as the sacred tree that serves as an image of the cosmos. Aranyani lives on in later day forest deities like Bon Bibi in Bengal, Vanadevi in Goa and the Konkan, and Vanadurga in South India. The Rig Veda dedicates a whole hymn to the rivers, the Nadi Sukta, while the Atharva Veda devotes 63 stanzas in praise of Mother Earth and nature, the Prithvi Sukta or hymn to the earth. The concept of earth as a divine mother appears here for the first time. Mata Bhumi Putro Aham Prithivyaha Parjanya Pita Sa Una Vipartu. Mother is the earth and I am the son of Prithvi. Rain is my father, let him save us. Nature is the creation and the manifestation. The Bhagavad Gita says he resides everywhere. And the Atharva Veda, Bhumi Sukta, is full of praise for Mother Earth. Sacred are your hills, your snowy mountains, your deep forests. Be kind and bestow upon us happiness. May you be fertile, arable, and nourished by all. May you continue supporting people and nations. May you protect us from your anger, that is natural disasters. And may no one exploit and subjugate your children. And then again, we are asked to look upon nature. O Mother Earth, may we possess the intellect and wisdom which enable us to speak with heavenly beings. May we continue to enjoy your blessing of hidden riches, glory and realization of material and spiritual well-being. Today we talk about pollution. In fact, all of us have got some problem thanks to pollution. But pollution was abhorred, and that means it was there even in the past. Kautilya, of course, says that punishment should be awarded even to those who throw dust and muddy water on the roads, and people who throw carcasses of animals and so on the streets must be punished. Environmental pollution or Vikriti was identified several millennia ago. From pollution, the Mahabharata says, from pollution 2 types of diseases occur in human beings. The first is related to the body and the other to the mind, and both are interrelated. Cool, warm and air, these are the 3 virtues of the body. When they are balanced in the body, it is free from disease. Just as the Panchabhutas, which we discussed earlier, the balance of the Panchabhutas is essential for the harmony in nature, in Prakriti. It is similar in the human body. The great scientist Charaka was prescient when he said, due to pollution of weather, several types of diseases will come up and ruin the country. I think he maybe had a telescope by which he could see into our times. So he says, therefore, collect the medicinal plants before the beginning of terrible disease and change in the nature of the earth. Unfortunately, we've stopped reading Charaka, and so we go to the doctor instead. Tree worship is probably the oldest form of worship. Even in my own archaeological study, I have found that the earliest form of worship in the Indus Valley is tree worship. In the Vedas also talks about tree worship. Trees were sanctified for their economic role, their use, produce, for providing homes for animals and birds, and for their medicinal and air purifying qualities. I don't know how many of you are aware, we are in Mylapore, where the main temple is Sri Kapalishwarar, and there the temple is the Punnai tree, the Sthala Vriksha, the Alexandrian laurel. And that was the sacred tree for a very economic reason, because the wood of that tree was used to create the boats, the ships which went to Southeast Asia, the catamarans which were used by the fishermen and so on. So it was very much a part of their lives. I came across one tree in Madurai, and Dr. Balasubramanian must have seen it too, in Puliyankulam and in Sri Vaikuntham. It's just a single banyan tree. It's so sacred because it is the home of about 1,000 or more flying foxes or fruit bats which roost there. And I said, why are they so important? And the people were knew why. They said, because they disperse seeds. That is their very important role. And so to ensure that the bats came back, the tree is so sacred that the people look after the tree so that the bats come back to the tree. Water, of course, is sacred because all life depends on it. And the mountains are sacred because they are the source of the rivers and the lakes. And they are so awe-inspiring that they are regarded as the homes of the gods. Hinduism has a definite code of environmental ethics. Man is not superior to nature, unlike the Bible, which says go forth and conquer the wilderness. In Hinduism, we do not say go forth and conquer, nor does he have dominion over creation. Hence, traditionally, the Hindu attitude has been respectful. Among the incarnations of Lord Vishnu, the first four are the fish, the tortoise, the boar, and Narasimha, the man-lion, clearly indicate even a knowledge of evolution. Tasmacha deva bahuda samprasuta sadhya manushyaha pashavo vayamsi. From him too are the gods produced manifold, the celestials, men, cattle, birds, says the Mundakopanishad. And the Bhagavad Gita says, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shva Pake Cha Panditaha Samadarshinaha. So this shows that we regarded animals as equal to human beings. And that, I think, is the most important aspect and the most important contribution to world civilization. That is ahimsa. India is the only country which thought of ahimsa. And it is non-violence in thought, word, action. Even in the Vedas, killing has been prohibited. There is one verse in the Rig Veda which says, the man who takes away the milk from the calf, kill him, chop off his head, O king. So violent. And the Yajurveda says no person should kill animals who are so helpful to all. By serving animals, one will attain heaven. So right from the beginning, there is this concept of ahimsa, which runs through our culture. Manusmriti says, he who injures innocent beings with a desire to give himself pleasure never finds happiness in life or death. In the 6th century, two great preachers, the Buddha and Mahavira, took this message to the world. Today, animal farming is destroying our world. Do you know that rainforests are cleared to grow soya to feed cattle for the meat industry, and that comes back to your table as burgers? Animal farms are producing large quantities of methane, which contributes to global warming. Our treatment of animals is cruel and unethical. Animals are abused in the name of food, entertainment, feasts, festivals, and religion. Surely this is unacceptable to any god. The Mahabharata says all creatures act according to the laws of their specific species as laid down by the Creator. Therefore, none should act unrighteously thinking it is I who is powerful. And this is where the Indian tradition of karma, associating all species with birth, death, and rebirth, becomes so important. Finally, we come to the forests, which are fast disappearing. They were the abode of spiritual solace. Our rishis sat in the forest, and that is where our sacred books were revealed. The Aranyakas are named after the forests. They live on in many ways. The sacred groves. I have been working in sacred groves. I've restored 53 groves in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra, and that has led to other people being inspired, about 22 other groves. So that is something that continues, and in Tamil Nadu there are many, many villages, each of which has a grove dedicated to the local deity, or to Mother Earth or ancestral spirits. A diverse range of ecosystems has been preserved and protected by local people through social traditions and taboos which have restricted human interference in the groves. They have evolved as important reservoirs of biological diversity and are associated with water bodies, serving as a valuable resource of water supply in the dry summer season. I went to Rajasthan last year, 2 years ago, and I visited their orans, and I was amazed, I was struck. I felt I was walking back 5,000 years. I went to this place called Jugru Rond, and there was a sacred grove. It was an aranya. And don't forget, the place I'm talking about is near Alwar, south of Delhi. Probably our Vedas and Aranyakas were written somewhere there. And in this, there was one Rishi, one Baba they called him. And it was a beautiful system by which people gave their first sack, which was kept in a big shed, and every morning and evening, he would throw it, and the birds and the animals, the deer, the peacock, they all came there and they fed there. And what was even more amazing is that around that one shed, they had all these constructions with havans, havan kunds, built in the ground. And they are exactly as per the Shatapatha Brahmana requirements. So it means that we continue many of these traditions. We just don't know where to look for them. Unfortunately, they're in one Jugru Rond, the one place somewhere, and unless you accidentally go there, you're never going to see it. So these things continue, and I think it is up to us to try and somehow preserve this and continue this for the future. Today, the fundamental concept of sacred groves has given way to developmental activities, agriculture, urbanization. In fact, what am I restoring? Those groves which have degenerated because agriculture or urbanization, something happened there. The violation of religious norms and taboos no longer carries consequences. I hate to use the word, but God-fearing was something which looked after the environment. I do not think one should fear God, but there are some people who will not do the right thing if they do not have that fear in them. Like they fear the police, they fear the God, they fear a lot of people. So that looked after a lot of things. Unfortunately, that fear has gone. So they are very happy to break it down. Our culture combines science and spirituality. Yet today everything is taken over by consumerism, creating a society of haves and have-nots. There is a strong symbiotic relationship between the biophysical ecosystem and socio-economic institutions with strong cultural traditions and which bind them. India has a long tradition of conserving nature by giving it a spiritual dimension, but a fast-changing world, growing consumerism and population, and the consequent pressure on land and natural resources has changed value systems. The urgency of global warming and climate change calls for a greater response from the world's religions. And here I think that as Hindus, we should go forth, our religious leaders should tell the people, you have beautiful traditions, preserve them. This is how they preserve the planet. 5,000 years ago, the sages of the Atharva Vedas said, the earth's attributes are for everybody, and no single group or nation has special authority over it. Therefore, people on this planet should strive for the welfare of all and hatred towards none. O Mother Earth, you are the world for us, and we are your children. Let us speak in one accord. Let us come together to live in peace and harmony and be cordial and gracious in our relationship with other human beings. Finally, I would like to end with a Shanti mantra, or prayer for peace from the Yajur Veda, which is a part of every Hindu ritual, and which, when you talk about peace, we all think, okay, I'll do yoga, I will get peace, I will forget that this horrible incident happened in the morning, I'll forget that the milkman forgot to bring the milk. That is not peace. The Hindu view of peace is something you all know, Om Dhyo Shanti Antariksham Shanti. पृथ्वी शांतिराप शांतिरौषधयः शांति वनस्पतयः शांतिर्विश्वे देवा शांति ब्रह्म शांति सर्वं शांतिः शांतिरेव शांतिः सा मा शांतिरेधि ओम शांति शांति शांति। थैंक यू।
An excellent lecture to complete this two-day seminar on ecology and environmental science. With her vast experience and also theoretical knowledge, she was able to bring out all the salient features. We are really grateful to you, Madam, for your excellent summary on the subject. And we would like to present her with a set of the publications that will be released during this year. Now, I request Shri Kalidas, our Vice President, to propose vote of thanks.
Dear Chairperson Nandita Krishnan, ladies and gentlemen, all the chairpersons, keynote speakers, distinguished guests, my colleagues on the Kupaswamy Sastry Research Institute administration, it's my pleasant duty to propose a hearty vote of thanks at the conclusion of the 2 days of deliberation on a very important topic which impinges on every individual present here and all over the world. I want you to recollect the motto of Kupaswamy Sastry Research Institute. It is there, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. So, the 2 days of deliberation has kindled the thought process. Whatever that we have been having inside, churning over, or agitated, whatever it is, or wanting to do something about, all these things were there. So, the kind of initiation or the kick has been given, I suppose, by the distinguished speakers who were all erudite scholars in their chosen subject, and they were so happy and glad to share their accumulated knowledge through their speeches. The chairpersons were very apt in summing up the session's highlights and then presented it in a form in which we could digest. Not to mention about Dr. Hemlata in the final session, she did in her own style a kind of summing up. All in all, everybody played a role, and I should express my deepest appreciation and thanks to your efforts. Thank you all, and may this be the beginning of some constructive activity. Already yesterday I mentioned my inner desire and ambition that the younger group must come forward to make use of this excellent opportunity that lies in front of us. It had been there for all along, but for some reason it had become dormant. Now is the time. We cannot wait or waste any more time to protect the environment. We have to act. We have to bring the ecology into proper balance. On one hand, we have the pundits to provide the excellent sources, take you to the references, and open your eyes and ears for what is contained in the old Puranas, Vedic literature, and Shastras, practices, and all that. On the other side, we have the Kupaswamy Sastry Research Institute, where there are people trained in research activities who can organize the thinking process and take you to specific subjects and then bring a synthesis or what do you call an interfacing of the traditional knowledge or the rich experience from the ancient literature to the modern sciences. Young people know through their own experience and practice maybe of the present day things, what's happening and how it is happening, why it is happening and all that. Bring a good interface. On top of it, we have today the CP Foundation and the lady who is very much in the thick of the affairs, not at the state level, but at the national level and also at the international level. Her exposure, her background, and the work she has already done, which is known to the public, is also a big strength for you. So let's pull together, bring together all these resources that is available, and then contribute to the society where we are. And there must be some benefit from all these things. Like Appaya Dikshidhar said, everybody has tapas. Everybody is doing tapas in one form or another. And what did he say, Appaya Dikshidhar? Paraspara tapas sampat phalayata parasparam. Let it not be for the pecuniary benefits. Ecology benefit hits you, influences you in many, many forms. It is not really cash in your bank account or anything like that. So let that be the spirit with which the work starts. And Kupsam Shastri Institute is always ready to join hands and give more strength and speed to the activities. Thank you all for your time and your presence and encouragement. Namaste.